We are not.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Madam President, the President of the United States swears an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, including bedrock principles, rule of law, the sanctity of elections. But nearly every day, President Trump ignores this fundamental responsibility and tramples on the values that have made our country the light of the world. No president has come close to defaming and trying to destroy the democratic values of this country. No president has come close. None. This morning, for what seemed like the millionth time, the president angrily, wildly, and baselessly ranted about the special counsel's investigation. It doesn't matter to him that his claims have no basis. It doesn't matter to him that his words may degrade faith in our independent law enforcement agencies and the rule of law. He proceeds only according to self-interest. He's offended that someone might look into the fact that he did something wrong. This happens with every president. And he lashes out in ways that hurt our democracy permanently. Just look at how over the past few weeks, President Trump has tried to intimidate and bully election officials in Florida and Arizona with fantastical claims of voter fraud. It doesn't matter to him that there's no evidence for the charges. It doesn't matter to him that in both states, Arizona and Florida, Republican officials have said there's no fraud, debunking the president's claims. It doesn't matter to him that his claims erode faith in the integrity of our elections among a segment of his supporters. If the president thinks it'll help him personally, he'll say it. One of the most recent examples just happened yesterday. The president, he keeps getting more and more absurd. He makes up things. So he most recently claimed in an interview with the Daily Caller that, quote, illegal voters go to their car, put on a different hat, put on a different shirt, and vote again. Mr. President, name one. Name a few. Where did it happen and when? Or did you just read this on some right-wing, nasty, dishonest blog and just repeat it? Donald Trump, you're the President of the United States. Because you read something in a blog that has no basis in fact, you don't have the right to repeat it if you're president and behaving presidentially. And yet he does it over and over again. It's the height of irresponsibility. It's the height of irresponsibility. Since his first day in office, President Trump has made these ridiculous claims about voter fraud. And even his sham voting commission, led by Chris Kobach, couldn't prove. The real disgrace is how low the president and some Republicans will stoop to preventing American citizens from exercising their right to vote, and how far they'll go to undermine faith in our democracy, even to the point of disenfranchising military voters, people who may be overseas defending our freedom, risking their lives, who want to vote. And if their ballot doesn't come in exactly at the right moment, they shouldn't be counted. Disgraceful. The tendency is to treat the president's words, oh, that's our modern partisan politics. Well, we have too much partisan politics. But the truth is, the president's blatant disregard for basic norms, constitutional constraints, and truth is unique to him. No president has come close to going as far to destroying democratic norms. He is doing severe and possibly irreparable damage to our democracy, all to suit his goal, and often it seems just his ego. So, Democrats, we condemn this behavior, but where are our Republican friends? They should know better. They do know better. I hear the private chatter. The silence of the Republican majority as the president takes an axe to democratic norms will go down as one of the least bright moments in the history of the Republican Party. it will go down as one of the bad marks in the history of the Senate. And we don't hear a peep. Are our Republican colleagues afraid? Are they just being mercenary? After this last election, I wouldn't think that would be the case. Trump didn't lead them to overwhelming victory. When are we going to hear from them? This is not an issue of partisanship. When a president, Democrat or Republican, does so much to destroy democratic norms, does so much to just make up things like people went into a car, put on a different hat and shirt, and then voted, where are our colleagues decrying this, at least saying the president shouldn't do it? Their embrace of the president, who they know has done so many bad things, I'm not talking ideologically, I'm talking about honor and respect for democracy, is something that they should not be proud of. Now, on the Russian investigation itself, there's this idea out there on the Republican side that the president doesn't intend to interfere with the Russian investigation. Republicans, including my friend the Republican leader, say President Trump has not threatened the special counsel investigation, so there's no need to protect it. That's a laugh. He threatens the investigation almost every day. He did this morning in his tweets. To say that the president hasn't threatened the special counsel is not only logically dubious, it's just dead wrong and untrue. A few weeks ago, President Trump said the investigation should end. This morning again, President Trump made clear that he does not want the Mueller investigation to reach a fair and impartial conclusion. And last week, President Trump went around the traditional line of succession in the Justice Department, what many believe to be a violation of the Constitution, to install an acting Attorney General whose only qualification for the job seems to be that he has publicly criticized the Russia probe. My friends, particularly my friends again on the Republican side, the writing's on the wall. Let's avoid this constitutional crisis. Let's at least stand up for rule of law. We should pass legislation now in the lame duck to protect the special counsel's investigation from the president and from his woefully unqualified henchman, Mr. Whitaker. Senators Flake and Coons tried yesterday, bipartisan. The Republican leader objected. They're going to keep trying as they should, and Democrats will try to add this proposal to the must-spending pass bill because we believe it's so important for our democracy. There's too much at stake to sit around and wait until the president crosses the line, creating the constitutional crisis we all abhor. But waiting till that happens, it'll be too late. We need to act on legislation to protect the special counsel, to protect the rule of law, to protect democracy, accountability, and the fundamental checks and balances that's a hallmark of our great nation. Finally, Mr. President, Madam President, last Tuesday's election was historic for not only the number of ballots cast by Americans in the midterms, but also for who those ballots were cast. Americans sent to our nation's capital the most diverse Congress in the history of the country. In several states, the first Native American woman, the first African American woman, the first Muslim women were elected in history of those states. Finally, the men and women walking the corridors of power are beginning to look more like the nation they represent, at least on our side of the aisle, I'm proud to say. We're not there yet, but we're a lot closer. In light of this progress, it's perhaps fitting that exactly half a century ago, a fellow Brooklynite, Shirley Chisholm, became the first African-American woman elected to Congress, and eventually the first African-American woman to run for a major party's nomination for president, breaking that glass ceiling and paving the way for so many others to follow. Whether they know Shirley Chisholm or not, so many who were elected on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the House, in the House of Representatives, owe a lot to her, as do all Americans. So I've introduced a resolution in the Senate, along with my friends, Representative Yvette Clarke, my Congresswoman, who I was proud to vote for in November, and Barbara Lee of California in the House to honor Shirley Chisholm's achievements and her legacy of public service. I yield the floor.